A few months ago, I made a video about a webtoon titled Castle, mostly just singing my praises on the writing, the art, and just the overall quality of the manhwa. Castle is without a doubt my favorite manhwa of all time, and if it's number one, there is also a massive gap between that and my second favorite, whatever that is. After I made my first video, Castle went on hiatus for a few months, but it returned in March of 2024 and opened with a fight scene that I will confidently dub the best that I've ever seen in any manhwa. In the world of webtoons, the fight scenes are always about gods and video game monsters or school bully gang brawls with a lot of crazy martial art visuals, and those are fine. I certainly don't want to make this video be about putting other webtoons down, but I do think Castle is also astronomically better in this regard too, or at least different. The fight scenes in Castle are always narrative driven. In season 1 for example, there is a great fight between two major supporting characters, Pyujin and Nam Kung-yeok, that told a story of two men who comes from exact same backgrounds of poverty, and the two should by all means respect one another, but they had to kill each other just for the simple fact that they belong to rival groups, and each of them killed the other's best friend. And this paints a really vivid and grim picture of the world of Castle, and there are countless other great fights like this one. And among such an ocean of brilliant action scenes, there is still one that stands out from the rest, which is the one that I'll be talking about in this video. The battle was between the protagonist Shin and one of the other S-tier characters in the universe, Chen. To understand what makes this fight so brilliant, we need some background info. Shin is the leader of this group called Baek E, and throughout the course of Season 2, they entered this titular organization Castle to destroy it from the inside out. Also part of Castle is an alliance of powerful Chinese triads called Hwajin, led by this sniveling sleazeball character Yu Song, who actually approached Shin with the idea of an alliance to take over Castle together. But Shin turned him down pretty harshly, and that led to the two groups fighting. But Shin is far stronger than anyone on Hwajin's side. There has to be some sort of trump card. So, one day, Yu Song tells his second-in-hand Chen to contact him, also calling this mystery individual Shin's counterpart, as he makes his first appearance looking all bloody inside some elevator. He makes his real debut in the following chapter. This individual is called Chen, and he is revealed to be Yu Song's mentor, his bio also stating that he is the best killer in all of China. The one thing that instantly catches the reader's attention is that Chen looks almost identical to Shin. As Yu Song hands him the picture of his target, Chen makes a rather interesting comment, saying that Shin disqualifies as a pro because his identity is too well known. This instantly set Chen apart from the rest of the top tiers in the verse. Other characters close to the top of the verse all have some grandiose epic nicknames, and they're either worshipped or feared by everyone, but this is clearly not how Chen operates. Keep this in mind because this is very important. So Chen accepts the job on the condition that Yu Song hands over to him half of everything that he earns in Korea. With no other choice, Yu Song relents, prompting a pleased reaction from Chen, who says that he'll take care of one or two small targets as bonus. The next time we see Chen is in Hong Kong, on some extravagant cruise that Yu Song is heavily affiliated with. Jin-tae and Pyoyoung, two major supporting characters from Baek E, are in Hong Kong on Shin's orders to find something that they can use against Yu Song. They were just there to cause a scene and flee real quick, but unfortunately Yu Song and his companions got the drop on them. Here we get to learn a bit more about Chen, because not even Jin-tae has any idea who this guy even is. It tells you just how perfectly hidden Chen is. And this fight on the cruise was amazing too. The way author Jong-yeol makes use of space and architecture makes everything so immersive. There is such a strong variety of different fighting arenas in the manhwa. Each fight has its own unique aesthetic. From western style shootouts in the woods and the highway, to the castle guards using their high-end tanks and shields that almost feel futuristic. And this fight on the cruise is very distinctly Hong Kong. So, Chen tells Yu Song that he'll take care of the aforementioned small fries if Yu Song wants him to. So Chen goes after Pyoyoung, the weaker target, and to say that he had his way with him would be an understatement. He absolutely dismantles the kid. Pyoyoung couldn't even sense where Chen was coming from, but right before Chen could kill him, help arrived. Latel, who is a Russian character that's also affiliated with Shin, came to their aid, and he took the battle from there. But unfortunately, Latel was absolutely no match for Chen either. Latao had the exact same thought as Jinte. Just who the hell is this guy? And why is there no information about such a top tier killer? Latao even imagined Kim Shin himself while he was fighting Li Chen, another really interesting thing to note. But once again, before the fighting could end, another character from Russia, Kriza, would join in on the fight. But even with a 3v1, there was still no match for Li Chen. However, it was enough to throw him off a little bit. In the end, most of the team managed to escape with their lives intact. Except for Kriza, he got brutally executed by Hua Jin, while Jinte and Ko just looked on in distress. So far, even more so than his monstrous strength, which is already big enough a problem of his own, Li Chen's perfectly hidden identity is an even bigger problem for Baek Yi. Because of this, they weren't able to factor him into their plans like at all, and that's what caused them. You should read this whole fight on the cruise yourself, because it's absolutely amazing. I'm just trying to get to Kim Shin and Li Chen with this video, so I left out a lot of details. So after the first fight, the match was set. Only Kim Shin can take this guy. He's almost literally Kim Shin himself. And with the killing of Kriza, Baek Yi and Hua Jin had no choice but to engage in a full-blown war. So both sides came up with their plans. Kim Shin and Jinte were supposed to ride together and slide on the Hua Jin hotel, but when they arrived there, the place was empty. Jinte realized that Hua Jin may be aiming for Hweam City instead of fighting at the hotel. Hweam City is a place where a lot of Kim Shin's retired friends reside peacefully. Of course, this smells like a ploy to just separate Baek Yi's forces so their plan is screwed, but they can't just not check it out. So Kim Shin takes a few of their commanders and head for Hweam City, while Jinte and Ko remains at the hotel to see if Yu Song shows up. As Kim Shin heads for Hweam City, he starts to notice that they're getting tailed, so he lures the enemy away from the rest of the group as they continue to Hweam. As Kim Shin makes his way into some grimy food stalls of sorts, he calls out to his pursuer, "Show yourself and I'll give you a painless death." And sure enough, out comes Li Chen, and so begins the battle between two god tier killers. But right before the duel begins, we get a flashback of Kim Shin's companions warning him about a man that he must account for. Latao adding that this guy is seriously, ridiculously strong, almost like a mirror of you, Kim Shin, he says, and that if it wasn't for him, Kriza wouldn't have died. The battle begins and both men engage in a shootout. As Li Chen ducks behind a pillar, Kim Shin rushes in, but Li Chen acted first and managed to graze Kim Shin's arm with a bullet. As Li Chen moves behind the wall, Kim Shin pursues, and the two of them finally comes head to head, and we get to see just how evenly matched the two killers are. And Kim Shin even confirms this, saying that Li Chen's build, speed, and technique are almost a complete one-to-one match with his own. And Li Chen then yanks the gun out of Kim Shin's hand and launches a brutal 1-inch punch. But as he tries to finish it right there and then, he learns that the safety is on. Or at least I think that's what they're saying. This panel from earlier might be connected to what happened here, but I know nothing about guns, so... Anywho, this allows Kim Shin to rush in ferociously, using a stabbing technique that he copied from the previous final boss in Season 1. Kim Shin strikes twice in a row, but Li Chen dodges just in the nick of time. And then he quickly undoes the safety pin and starts shooting, but Kim Shin dodges point blank and literally throws a knife at Li Chen at the same time. The two continues to brawl in epic fashion. Li Chen launches himself backwards to create some space, but Kim Shin intercepts him from the side. The beautiful choreography continues to highlight the similarities in their techniques. Kim Shin grabs onto a rope and ties it around Li Chen's neck, trapping him viciously, causing the practically flawless killer to actually feel fear for the first time ever. But he quickly shakes it off and frees himself from the hold. The fighting continues on the ground. As Li Chen gets the upper hand, we get a glimpse into his past. A flashback where he killed his own senior and seemingly became super arrogant after that, calling Kim Shin a mere tree to his mountain. But suddenly, his fingers are numb. It's most likely because Kim Shin nicked them with a knife a few panels earlier. But there is no time to be reflecting on his errors, because Kim Shin is about to go in. Once again, rushing in with a signature stab. This time, Li Chen opted to directly counter the attack with a strike of his own. But as it turns out, this wasn't actually something that Li Chen intended to do. He merely reacted. It was purely impulse, almost unfitting, and embarrassing for a supposed flawless killer. By the time that he realized his fatal mistake, Kim Shin had started to steamroll him. And we get to learn that Yu Song actually knew Li Chen would lose to Kim Shin all along, and he only used Li Chen to distract Kim Shin, and of course free of charge too. He got played, and now he's about to get slaughtered too. In his final moments, he actually tried to get away. But Kim Shin caught him, put his jacket over his head, took his blick, and stood over him, as Li Chen was left to contemplate if he was the tree all along. So that was the fight, but I promise you, there's a lot of subtle details that you missed. Besides the phenomenal choreography, this fight also has loads of thematic storytelling. I said earlier to keep in mind that Li Chen's MO is keeping himself perfectly hidden, and up until his final moment this was a repeated motif. His presence and the enemy not being aware of it dealt some fatal blows to Baek Yi, but ultimately, his biggest strength was also his biggest weakness. As we learned in the flashback, Li Chen is a natural talent. We can assume that both because of that and his decision to stay hidden, he never really had a life or death battle, where he had to escape by the skin of his teeth, or he was really pushed mentally, until now anyways. And that was the sole difference between Kim Shin and himself. The author made it abundantly clear that these two were extremely similar, even down to their physical appearance. There was but just one crucial difference, and that was mental strength. The moment Li Chen realized that Kim Shin was someone who was just marginally stronger than himself, he collapsed mentally. The result could have been different if he just kept his cool and tried to figure something out. There's also a bit more to his final moments. Right before he died, he was seen reaching desperately for the light seeping in through the tiny opening of the gate, which is ironic considering his entire belief was to remain strictly in the shadows. The reason why I love this fight so much is because it's effective and efficient storytelling. Li Chen doesn't have some big arc, and his involvement in the story is relatively brief, but his entire character and the screen time that he did have always made a statement. Every time he fought, we learned something new. Crazy fight scenes for the sake of crazy fight scenes is probably my biggest critique for the school bully martial arts manhwa and the time travel they get imported into a video game world kind of stories. They just feel like something handcrafted for the TikTok algorithm. Very style over substance. In comparison, to see a detail-oriented manhwa that just has something to say is very refreshing, and Castle is just that. The story is only getting better, and I fully expect there to be even better fights on the horizon, such as Kim Shin versus Ma Ha-gyeon, who is the lead bodyguard of the president of Castle, and someone who has a deeply personal vendetta against Kim Shin. Their rivalry might have to be a video of its own, and they have been canonically referred to as the definitive top two of the verse, so their clash should be generational. But until then, Li Chen versus Kim Shin is far and away the best manhwa fight that I have ever seen. Read Castle.